what I found out through a little bit of homework was that her love language wasn't gifts. That was actually mine. So I was communicating with her with my language, not her language, right?
Right.
It's very similar to managers, I think, and salespeople. And so, you know, when I changed that, the little things I did really made a significant impact on what she heard and how it occurred to her. And we're not always conscious about how we occur to people, I think.
Let me ask you, why do you think sometimes it breaks down between the salesperson and the sales manager? I wonder about that, because I'm sure there's not a sales manager on the planet that doesn't want their team to achieve their goals, but why does it break down? Why does it not work?
There's a couple of things I think that go on, and it's really changing, I think, in our society. I'm thinking like back, 20 or 30 years ago, they were an authority figure and you wanted to do everything they said so you didn't get in trouble. And it seems more and more like people don't want that. They want collaborativeness. They want, let's work together. And I do see managers that are really driven about, here's the goal that has to happen and you've got to hit your goal. And I don't know if they ever really get connected or aligned the salesperson's why with the organization's why. That's a big one, I think. I also think that manager shows up as an authority figure to them. And some people are there. If we look at, there's a lot of different things like in the DISC profile, a lot of our salespeople are I's. They're low detail, high people, which makes them great in front of clients, but they're not always high task. And you get a sales manager, it might be very high task oriented, and they're driving for the task, and there's just a misalignment or not agreement about it. But if you can create that initial alignment on the objective and then speak the language that fits them, I have this funny joke that I share people about. My wife, we talked about it. We did this whole study on what's your love language, and it's such a big important thing about how you communicate. I kept buying her all these nice gifts. And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's nice, thank you. Oh yeah, that's nice, thank you." Like they weren't that important. And what I found out through a little bit of homework was that her love language wasn't gifts. That was actually mine. So I was communicating with her with my language, not her language, right?
Right.
It's very similar to managers, I think, and salespeople. And so, when I changed that, the little things I did really made a significant impact on what she heard and how it occurred to her. And we're not always conscious about how we occur to people, I think.
Again, I would go back to the busyness of life. So we've packed so much in to our lives that it's sometimes hard to be thoughtful about what's happening, why those things are happening, and it's easy to have knee-jerk reactions. So that's one. And then a lot of times, people are so self-focused and me-centered that it's hard to see outside of ourselves. And it wouldn't surprise me if the love languages were off and acts of service versus is it gifts? Is that it's words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts. The other two are physical touch. Uh-huh.
There's a fifth one in there.
There's a fifth one.
We probably need to brush up on that.
That's for another YouTube channel and another day. We'll cover that.
Yeah.
But your point to misalignment in terms of just going to DISC. So at the meeting I was at before, it came up. I said, DISC is one of the 4 sciences that you and I rely on to help people create a path forward and good communication and higher performance. And one of the things that I've noticed, so I was reviewing a profile with a couple of hiring managers yesterday on the East Coast, and you could clearly see that this person would make a good salesperson, certainly a good communicator, happy to be out front stage, would really pay attention to their audience, good EQ as well, one of our other sciences that we're fans of. And but he's probably going to be an administrative nightmare. Right? Very low detail orientation. And if you think about it, what percentage of the salespeople out there are administrative nightmares, but they're really talented people.
Yeah.
And what accommodations are made. And so this topic comes up a lot, I think, where, okay, my sales team is complaining that they have too many to-dos, to clean up behind them. And I'm not a big fan of overburdening a salesperson with a lot of administrative tasks. Yet I want to know, before I augment their administrative support, that they're at least covering the basics in terms of getting those activities done that we agreed to, going back to your first point.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of give and take. So I think safely, if you keep your side of the street clean and you're doing your part, and if you're in a sales role or production role, getting your activities done day in, day out, week in, week out, with relative consistency. Nobody's perfect. Then I think your leadership will tend to meet you halfway and do more to help and offload whatever they can, automate, support you. So, but I think it's a first things first. We got to make sure that, to keep our side of the street clean, that we're doing our activities and, chop wood, carry water. So,
yeah, well, you've always been a great one talking about managing expectations. And I think it's a real core to healthy human relationships, right? And I've thought often about the process of how we hire, and even wondering if that relationship starts right. So we run an ad in a job description, which has nothing to do with what it's going to take to be successful, right? And then we bring them on board and say, okay, we give them this goal to hit, which a lot of it is like, we want you to sell $1 million, and they can't control if people buy or not. Right. So I also feel like a big part of this, like setting the relationship up right? Which is, if I set the relationship like, hey, I want you to make it, and here's realistically what you're going to have to do in a success profile to make it. And if this doesn't scare you away, then let's go to the next step, right?
Yeah.
And from day one, you're setting in their mind, here's the culture, here's the expectation, here's why I'm hiring you. And you have continuity through the relationship. I hear this, probably one of the most common things I hear from top performers is, they brought me under this premise and now they're expecting this, and it's a complete change, right? And I don't know if I want that new change or that new thing, right? So, part of training is consistency and setting, I think, and developing people is setting that expectation right up front.
Yeah. And I think people development, right? Versus training. I was just going to zero in on the language a little bit. I don't think Aaron Donald would want to go to a training program to be taught how to work the defensive line. But I think if we said we've got a team of defensive line experts that have all been on the line and coached the line for several years and have X number of Super Bowl rings between them, I think he'd gladly sit down with those guys, review film with those guys, and look forward to the feedback, because that guy wants to win.